2 to 3 weeks into quarantine. I really can't tell now that I don't go to work or interact with other humans. I don't really have much reason to keep track of time. Rather than keep track, I'm merely riding the perpetual waves of continuity that time possesses. At the end of a rainbow is ultraviolet light. When the bacteria that causes leprosy are exposed to that ultraviolet light, the procedure kills half the bacteria. Therefore, sunlight may fight leprosy. The 7 seals of a rainbow reveals a body of light that is real light when all 7 seals unite in the covenant that marks the Ark of the Covenant. I've begun counting pieces of lint that I find in my dresser for entertainment. I've watched as much Hulu and played as many games as the human brain allows me to. Now I feel nothing but emptiness. I can't go to the store to get food, or go to the mall, or even eat dinner with my grandmother. I wonder how Grandma is doing right now. You know, being all old and stuff. But never mind that. I need something that will make me feel again. There's got to be some new revolutionary technology that could help me with this. Streaming has failed me. Modern AAA titles have basically been failing everybody for the past couple of years. What is it that's going to make me feel again? I will be putting all my energy and diligent efforts towards this quest. And with that, I hope that you are doing well, and that you and the children are nothing but prosperous. It inflames my heart knowing I've wedded a woman that is willing to listen to my persistent ramblings. If you have anything you want to share with me, just know I'm eager and waiting to receive your letters. With that, I must bid you adieu, my sweet, and continue to pray that the powers that be bring you, me, and our 8 children together again. May we see each other on the morrow. Cordially yours, and for always, Gannon. Whoa! Hey, what's up guys? Gannon here. Yes, it's true. I did it. I did the unthinkable. I did the unimaginable. I have been so desperate for some sort of stimulation, something new, maybe something exciting that I could experience here during quarantine because I'm really bored out of my mind. Even starting to get a little bit depressed, honestly. Usually before I had a thing like my job that would force me to wake up every day and shower and just be like a normal functioning human being. It also helped me keep track of time, but now that I have none of that, I'm just supposed to stay here in my home and just, you know, not go outside. I can't really do any of that. It's kind of fucking with my mind a little, you know, like showering every other day, like forcing myself to do normal things. Kind of makes me feel like a lazy piece of shit. I'm uploading like on average at least a video every 3 days. I'm uploading a ton and it still just doesn't feel like enough because I'm in my house just doing nothing. So I thought, let's be a little bit productive. Let's do a little bit of scripting for this video, branch out, do new things. And one of those new things that I'm going to be trying, something that I've kind of been wanting to do for a minute, is go back to the magical world of physical books. We're starting to, you know, get to that point in the information age where printable books aren't really convenient, nor are they really efficient in the grand scheme of things. If I really wanted to read this book, I could have found a free PDF online, but the reason I went out and bought a physical copy is because I think there is something that comes with actually physically holding a book and the paper and the pages and everything that kind of makes you want to get into the book, kind of stimulates you a little bit more, invigorating that way. It doesn't really feel the same when I could go to my fucking Kindle and just download any book I want and just read it instantly. I went onto eBay and I ordered a used paperback copy of the Martian Chronicles by Bradbury. As you can see right here, beautiful, beautiful, gorgeous cover. I'm going to find out who drew this cover and who illustrated it, and I'm going to talk about that in my review later, because one of the reasons I got this book in particular is because I've actually already read this book. I read this book freshman year. It's been ages. I really don't remember much of the book's contents, like at all, or really what happens, or even if I really read it as well as I should have back then, you know, when I was younger. All I remember is that this book was really good. It's written by Bradbury. You might know him because he wrote a very popular novel called Fahrenheit 451. It's pretty standard reading in a lot of English classes, especially in American schools. I know I had to read it for an assignment once. So that's probably where you know Bradbury from. He is a pretty famous science fiction writer. together. Basically what I want to start doing, guys, is actually like buying and reading books. Like I went on to eBay, I bought this used copy, it came to my house, I waited for it. Now I finally have it in my hand and I'm kind of excited. After I get done reading this book, I'm just gonna have a physical copy that I could put on my bookshelf and say, hey, I knocked that one out. So yeah, I think this is gonna be pretty good for me. Nobody ever told me that reading was unhealthy. It's definitely like a healthy, proactive thing to do, especially during quarantine. So I think I'm gonna go try it out. Anyways, guys, with all that out of the way, I'm actually pretty excited. This is going to be like, hopefully, like a Gannon's book club series. I wanna start reading books and expanding my vocabulary and just kind of expanding the amount of books that I read. Because, you know, guys, if there's anything that could really be used as a tool for success, we all know it, baby. It's fucking knowledge. There we go. Knowledge! Anyways, guys, I'm going to read this book. I'm going to get hella under the influence. I'm just gonna sit down, maybe with a nice drink. Maybe if my cat decides she wants to come out and spend time with me. She's kind of fucking sick of me right now. Like, Donna doesn't come out from under the bed or out of the closet because I don't think she's used to me being home like 24/7. It's almost like, dude, get the fuck out of my room. Why are you here, dude? Like, don't you need to go to work or something? No, I don't, Donna. You're stuck with me. Oh boy. Well, anyways, yeah, I'm gonna read this book and hopefully I'm gonna have a lot of fun doing it. I don't know how fast I'm gonna get through this thing. It's got like, what, like 182 pages. That's not that bad for an adult with like a regular reading level. I feel like I can get through this pretty easily. But when I do get through with this book, I will be back to let you know my review on this book and see if you want to read it yourself. There will be a non-spoiler portion and then there will also be a small spoiler portion that you guys can come back and watch maybe after you decided to read the book. It could be like kind of like a little bit of a book club. I think I'm gonna call it Gannon's book club or something like that. And with that, guys, I'm gonna have to see you back here with my review after I'm done reading this puppy. Happy reading, guys. So I began reading and I continued to read and I read and I read, but not all at once, because I have a crippling mentality of prone procrastination, which is the root of many of my personal anxieties. Oh, fuck. This kind of hurts my neck to hold. Oh, yeah, no. Jesus Christ, that was definitely not worth it. That has caused very unnerving stress to my neck muscles. Anyways, yes, I did eventually finish the novel after 2 days of picking the book up, putting it back down, and picking it back up again. Whoa, there we are. Here we are, guys. It's about 2 or 3 days later, and I finished the book. Naturally, I definitely procrastinated a little bit. I've got to say, I definitely enjoyed myself, but before we get into any of, like, the actual review portion and the little bit of the spoiler portion where I actually discuss some of the stuff that happens in the book, I think I should tell you guys some of the things that I found out with my extended research. Basically, Ray Bradbury's The Martian Chronicles is a collection of short stories, most of them being published in various pulp science fiction magazines prior to the release of the actual book. It was released on May 4th, 1950, and on the wiki it says that it has like 222 pages. This might be the original published release. My copy only has 182 readable pages. It was first published in hardbound form in the United States in 1950 by the Doubleday and Company Incorporated, and the copy that I have right here with this gorgeous illustration on the cover was published and printed by Bantam Books in 1979, and the illustrator who drew this, his name is actually Ian Miller. Absolutely beautiful cover, the entire reason that I actually chose to buy this specific copy. I currently have the cover actually set as my background right now because it's like one of my favorite retro sci-fi pieces of art like I've seen, to be honest. It's really, really cool. I really enjoy Ian Miller's depiction of the Martian people on the front cover. I did some research on Ian Miller, by the way. He's not like super interesting. He's actually still alive. He's about 74. He has illustrated for a handful of other science fiction and fantasy publications, but one cool fact that I did find out is that he actually did do some card art for Magic the Gathering, so little fun factoid right there. The story is split up into 3 parts, and I'll go more into what happens in those 3 parts in, you know, the later spoiler portion. It follows a future history structure, whereas all the short stories can, you know, be told independently by themselves, which they were in these pulp science fiction magazines. And then when they actually went to publish the book, Ray Bradbury obviously made some edits, and he also wrote some extra short stories so that they could all come together in this bigger narrative, and then he squashed them all together, and that's what we have right here. We have Ray Bradbury's The Martian Chronicles. So a short spoiler-free synopsis that I could give for this book is basically it documents man's experiences creating expeditions to go and actually explore
Mars on rockets. Then after they actually have some successful expeditions, they begin to colonize Mars. And it documents basically man's interactions with Mars as well as the Martian people. This book is definitely a parody of everything that's wrong with human civilization basically at the time it was written. Ray Bradbury, as a science fiction writer, definitely does the best at kind of criticizing and creating satire, just basically criticizing the way we humans do things, you know? When we fuck up our Earth, we go and seek out other planets to then fuck up and colonize. We force our culture onto others in other places, that type of beat. We're also like pent on war, and we don't really give a shit about others, that type of stuff. You know, the normal, the huge. Alright, there's my synopsis. There's also kind of like my extended research on the book. Now let's get into actually what happens in the book. Now, if you haven't read the book, then I definitely recommend that you go and read it, and then you come back, and then you kind of, you know, we have a little bit of a discussion. This is supposed to be kind of like a book club, so do with that what you will. If you want to stick around and see what actually happens in the book, you can do that. If you're lazy and you don't want to read this book, you could definitely go on Wikipedia or like SparkNotes, and they're gonna have all the short stories summarized, you know, synopsis, so you could actually learn what happens in every one of them. Although that's definitely a pale imitation. I mean, these things are definitely worth reading for yourself. Some of the stories that Ray Bradbury like actually writes in this book are nothing short of masterpieces. This book is told in 3 parts. The first part, the first expeditions come to Mars. The Martians keep attempting to drive off the humans. Little back and forth, a bunch of humans die, and then at the end of it, the Martians actually get smallpox or maybe even chickenpox, either of the two, and a majority of the Martians on the planet Mars actually died because they contracted this human disease. That basically ends the first part with all the Martians dying. That basically opens up a window and allows man to just come in, like, well, if there's no Martians standing in our way, we could just, you know, fuck off with them and start colonizing the planet. So that's exactly what they do. In the second part of the book, it tells man's effort to colonize Mars, coming in contact with what little Martians actually remain on the planet. The first part, you get a lot of like really Twilight Zone-y level stories, whereas the middle is definitely like the bread and butter of the book. You're gonna find probably your favorite short story somewhere in the middle. And then the end short stories are definitely like super dystopian, super depressing, definitely a scent of melancholy just coming off the pages. And then the second part basically ends with nuclear war starting on the planet Earth. From the beginning of the book, they were constantly talking about the possibility of nuclear war breaking out on Earth. The atom bomb is definitely like a huge tool that's used in this book, because this is shortly after the bombing of Hiroshima, and they actually reference the shadows of Hiroshima. You know how like when America dropped the bombs down on Hiroshima, the light and the heat was so intense that it actually left like shadows of people just etched into the concrete and onto walls. That actually happens in a short story near the end of this book. In the third part, we have the aftermath of the whole nuclear war. And then at the end of the book, huge spoiler here, this is like the final page. So like maybe even if you are like just watching this because you're interested in the book, you want to skip ahead like 20 seconds. Basically at the end of the book, most all of the human race is dead except for maybe like a handful of people. Also, all the Martian race is dead pretty much. I think there might not be any Martians left. And what remaining humans there are, they actually go back up to Mars to escape Earth and any of like Earth's oppressive cultures and all their fucked up ideologies. They basically go to Mars and they escape them. They look down into the beautiful blue canals of Mars, and it's like a father with his children, and he's like, oh, well, where are the Martians, Dad? You said you were going to show us Martians. He's like, look down at the water, and they see the reflections of themselves in the water, and he says, there are your Martians right there. Basically, the only like shred of hope this book leaves you with is that the prospect that humans may become like the new Martian race and basically learn from all the fucked up shit that's gone on. The misunderstandings between the Martian people and the human race, nuclear war, just all the stupid shit that mankind was doing on Earth. For one thing, they were like banning books and literature and like the ability to actually go and create like things like movies. That is one of the themes for one of my favorite short stories, The Usher 2, I think it's called. Basically, that one's about a dude who goes to Mars to escape like the censorship and oppression on Earth, which, by the way, they actually talk about organizations that go in and do mass book burnings and everything, and that's definitely, if not a direct correlation to the Fahrenheit 451 universe, was like the inspiration for it. I'm pretty sure this book was written prior to Fahrenheit 451, so that organization that was actually spoken about in that short story, The Usher 2, that directly inspired Fahrenheit 451, because in that short story, The Usher 2, it's about a guy who goes to Mars to escape oppression and censorship that's on Earth, and he goes there and he builds this multi-million-dollar mansion that's made out of robots and androids, so he could call up everybody who leads this organization, invite them in, and then just murder them all with androids. It's a really dark, cryptic story that utilizes also illusion as well. He makes many references to Edgar Allan Poe's works like The Cask of Amontillado, which I actually had to read in grade school, so I actually remember that one. So yeah, that's a really good short story. If you don't read the whole book and you decide to read like a couple short stories, I think the first 3 short stories, The Usher 2, and then my favorite short story was this one called The Night Meeting, which tells you about this traveler named Thomas Gomez. He's going through this like old Martian town, and then out of nowhere, this Martian just pops up in front of him on some sort of vehicle, and then they have this little back and forth chitter chatter. It's my favorite short story because it's like the first time where a human and a Martian actually get along. You will not find anywhere else in this book where the Martians and the humans have some sort of common ground. The closest thing I could actually like maybe think of that's even close to that is that one short story where this dude has a hot dog stand and these Martians are trying to give him half of Mars for some reason, but he proceeds to just kill a couple Martians and be an absolute asshole. A fair amount of the people that show up in the actual expedition short stories come back later and they pop up and they actually like influence the story that goes on. So it's definitely told in like an episodic fashion. Alright, with that all out of the way, I've talked about my favorite short story, I've talked about what happens in the book. Now I think it's time for me to bring up some things that I really enjoyed about the book and then give it a rating and then end it there. My favorite thing about this book, and it's not really just this book, it's Ray Bradbury's books in general, this dude is a fucking artist when it comes to imagery. This dude can definitely just like paint a picture in your mind like way better than a lot of other authors that I've read. Like he's so talented when it comes to describing something as simple as a picnic, food on a table, or somebody like breathing against a glass pane. Ray Bradbury is like really good at using imagery. The way he brings this stuff to life, the way he just describes mundane objects and personifies them and really just whew, it definitely like gets the reader really involved and almost transports them inside the story. It's really crazy. One of my favorite examples of this, and I'll actually go to the page now, the way he describes the Martian people is just like really beautiful and unique, and I think it's just really awesome, especially since this is a science fiction story collection that came out of the 1950s. Just gets me geeked. I'll read right here. This is on page 2 actually of the first short story. Mr. and Mrs. K had lived by the Dead Sea for 20 years and their ancestors had lived in the same house, which turned and followed the sun, flower-like, for 10 centuries. Mr. and Mrs. K were not old. They had the fair, brownish skin of a true Martian, the yellow coin eyes, the soft musical voices. Once they had liked painting pictures with chemical fire, swimming in the canals in the seasons when the wine trees filled them with green liqueurs, and talking into the dawn together by the blue phosphorus portraits in the speaking room. The way that Ray Bradbury describes the Martians and the whole entire Martian landscape is nothing short of beautiful. He describes these blue canals, the red sand, the very old, archaic-looking Martian cities that have long since been abandoned after the Martians actually perished. The Martians actually have the ability of telepathy, which plays a huge role in the first couple short stories as well as the ones later on. Another example of just this personification and this imagery, I would like to read this passage right here, which is on page 171, and this is actually that short story with the Hiroshima shadow reference that I was talking about. A little bit of context here, this is a house, an automated like super house that is abandoned. It is the only thing remaining for like miles because everything else has been blown up and destroyed by nuclear warheads. So what Ray Bradbury right here is doing is basically just working with this house alone. He has no characters to enrich this story. He's got to bring what's happening to this house to light to the point where it actually, you know, makes the story interesting and affects the reader. And that's exactly what this motherfucker does, and I'm gonna read it right here. The fire crackled upstairs. It fed upon Picassos and Matisses in the upper halls like delicacies, baking off the oily flesh, tenderly crisping the canvases into black shavings. Now the fire lay in beds, stood in windows, changed the colors of drapes, and then reinforcements. From attic trap doors, blind robot faces peered down with faucet mouths gushing green chemical. The fire backed off, as even an elephant must at the sight of a dead snake. Now there were 20 snakes whipping over the floor, killing the fire with a clear, cold venom of green froth. But the fire was clever. It had sent flames outside the house, up through the attic, to the pumps there, an explosion. The attic brain which directed the pumps was shattered into bronze, shrapnel, and a beam. The fire rushed back into every closet and felt of the clothes hung there. The house shuddered, oak bone to bone, its bare skeleton cringing from the heat, its wire, its nerves, revealed as if a surgeon had torn the skin off to let the red veins and capillaries quiver in the scalded air. Help, help! Fire! Run! Run! Heat snapped mirrors like the brittle winter ice. Alright, I'll stop there, but you get my fucking point, right? This dude is like an artist. When it comes to describing and bringing these things to life, it is truly impressive what he's able to do in just a simple short story, and how he's able to make like boring ass shit just totally exciting to the reader. Anyways, guys, that has been my review of Ray Bradbury's The Martian Chronicles. Now I'm gonna give this book a final rating. I'm gonna give this book a solid 8.5 out of 10. Mostly because I'm pretty sure this is a pretty famous science fiction novel, like it's renowned for being good already. First edition copies of this book in the hardcover are actually highly sought after by collectors. I've already read this book once before, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I like barely remembered anything prior to reading it. I actually had to go in and read it to re-jog my memory, so it was almost like reading this book all over again. There's also the nostalgic factor there, so yeah, I enjoyed this book. Definitely a great science fiction novel. I'm gonna give it a solid 8.5 out of 10. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the first episode of Gannon's little book club here. Tell me what you thought, if you thought I did a good job. I've never really been much of a reader or like super excited by books, but I'm gonna certainly try to. I'd love for anyone to leave a comment and talk to me about like what happens in the book, what you think, what you like. I'll definitely get back to you for sure. If you enjoyed the video, please slap a like on it. If you're liking the content on the channel, I'd be very flattered if you were to subscribe. And with that, I'm gonna have to see you guys in the next one.